Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming this evening. This beautiful day, August 13th, 2019. I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Blowing Rock Town Council. If you would, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance. On a more solemn note, I hope our hopes and prayers have gone out to those many people in Ohio and Texas that were a very unfortunate situation. We need to keep them in our prayers. That moving forward, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, the agenda's been approved. All right, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so be it. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from July 9th, 2019, the regular meeting?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to speak this evening, we would ask that you come over here to Ms. Cooper to sign in. If you would like to speak on the public hearing on the conditional rezoning, we'd prefer, yes, you do sign in, but wait till that comes up on the agenda to speak. So if you would like to sign in to speak, please step over and see Hillary. All right. I do have, let's see here. As far as public comments, I have Neil Orgain. Yes, ma'am. Would you like to wait till?
I will wait.
Okay.
Thank you.
Greg Tarbutton, would you like to go ahead and speak?
Yeah,
Okay. Would you like to step up, Mr. Tarbutton?
thank you. First of all, thank you to the mayor and council for allowing me a few minutes to say something. It will take a few minutes.
Could you come over here? So, yeah, so
I was going to use my
some of us, our ear sight's not good.
What I want to talk about is an issue that really hadn't been addressed. There's been a lot of going back and forth on the pros and cons of short-term rentals. That's really not what I want to address. Indeed, as a member of the Development Authority, Tourism Development Authority, I think it would be inappropriate for me to take a position. What I would like to speak on, though, is the power grab that the world's largest short-term rental company is doing. It's a $38 billion company, according to Forbes. And I, like many of you, I'm sure, believe that the people who should be making decisions on the rules and regulations and zoning in the town of Blowing Rock are the folks sitting in front of us. But just to give you a few examples real quick, how this is happening all over the world, it's kind of a guerrilla war that has been waged against the people's elected representatives. The town of Barcelona, Spain, they won a $600,000 euro judgment against this company in 2016. They appealed it. It's still in court, and they are still doing business and disrupting neighborhoods and making decisions that rightfully belong to the city council of the town of Barcelona, Spain. In New York City, the city of New York asked to have a list of the hosts or the people who are renting apartments through their site. Not only did they refuse, they put it in, the company blocked it. It is currently in court, and they are still doing what they choose. Now, I believe that the folks sitting here were entrusted by the voters of Blowing Rock to represent them. And if the voters in Blowing Rock or any other city, county, or state in our nation are disappointed, they have the right to petition their representatives or indeed run against them. However, this power is being unjustly seized and usurped, because if Barcelona and New York cannot defend against a $38 billion company that will keep it in court forever, what chance have we have? Therefore, it is my suggestion that this council get together with the North Carolina Association of Mayors, the North Carolina Municipal Association, the North Carolina County Commissioners Association, and petition our state and federal representatives, not for one size fits all, because that would defeat the argument I'm making here. That belongs to the individual municipalities and the people we have entrusted to represent us, but rather to seek a national consensus that states firmly that the power to regulate cities and towns and villages belongs to the people's elected representatives. Ben Franklin was asked by a lady after the First Continental Congress, "What kind of government are you giving us?" And Mr. Franklin replied, "A representative republic, if you can keep it." Well, these are our representatives, and the only way they're going to be able to keep it is if we support them and they petition these national organizations and our state and federal representatives, because if not, we haven't got a chance. And that's all I wanted to say, and I appreciate your time, and I want to apologize for only having 5 copies, but my copier ran out of ink. So if you would share that, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Greg. Okay. All right. Moving forward here, many of us are very well aware of the Blowing Rock Horse Show and what it's done for our community through the many, many years. And so Mr. Ewing would like to make a presentation on something supplemental and additional to the Blowing Rock Horse Show, which sounds, from what I've heard, to a lot of people, very exciting. So, Mr. Ewing?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Fox, thank you very much for letting us take a chunk out of your evening, and we appreciate that. We've got something exciting to talk about, and we will try to make this prompt and as simple as we can, but still hopefully share this excitement with you. We have 3 people that are going to speak today, and I'd like to point them out so we don't have to do introductions every time. Jack Fisher is the sponsor of this event. And he's the chair. He lives in Alpharetta, Georgia. His wife and 2 daughters ride and show hunters and jumpers. And his primary career is real estate, but he's been an accountant and who knows what all else. Jack and his family recently formed the James Fisher Memorial Foundation to honor his late son, and that's what this event largely is about. John Vann, raise your hand, John, is a Blowing Rocker. Most of you probably know him. He's been in front of you before. He's from Bluffton, South Carolina, and a seasonal resident of Blowing Rock. And he's a member of the Blowing Rock Charity Horse Show Foundation, and is going to talk about the relationship that our foundation here in Blowing Rock has with the Fisher Foundation and how this is going to work locally. He's the primary liaison between the Fisher family and Vic Russell and the Blowing Rock Equestrian Preserve, which is going to be the site of the activity. Vic Russell, sitting right here, has been to Blowing Rock probably as many times as all of us have. He's been here for years, and if you've been to the horse show in the last 50 years or so, you've seen him ride. He has children in the business now. He's 72 years old and trains hunters and jumpers every day, and I'll beg your forgiveness for telling him how old you are. I apologize for that. His most recent appearance at the horse show was just this past 2 weeks, and 2 of his horses won first and second place in the big Grand Prix that ended the show. So he is a stalwart and a good friend of the horse show. And that is going to pretty much occupy our time. But before I turn it over to Jack, I want to comment about one thing. Is the police chief here? Is he here?
Aaron, are you here?
No, I don't need him. He can stay there, in fact.
Aaron, we may need you.
When I came in this afternoon, I filled out the survey about the police department, and it was so incredibly timely because I got stopped out here on the bypass this afternoon. And I just want to say, it was the most courteous encounter I've ever had with law enforcement. He was as nice as he could be. I'm not going to tell you who he is, but it wasn't a bad experience. And at the end of it, I thanked him for doing a good job for us. So that's a very timely survey. Said on there, have you had an encounter in the last 24 hours? I had to scratch through it, and I had to put 4 hours. Anyway, Jack Fisher, if you would tell us about what we're going to do.
Mr. Fisher, if you would, just for records, state your address, if you would, please.
Jack Fisher, Alpharetta, Georgia. Okay, well, first and foremost, thank you all for, having us here and listening to what we have to propose. As I said, my name is Jack Fisher. I'm a native of actually Marshall, North Carolina. And, my family's been in Western North Carolina for a long time. And, I started my career with Internal Revenue Service with Price Waterhouse and, really worked all around the world and, come back to Marshall, North Carolina in the mountains. It's really a pretty nice place to be. And I started development over there. It's called Preserve at Little Pine. It's a low-density conservation-themed community. Started back in 2002. And what I really do with my CPA background and real estate background is we buy large tracts of land, and then we basically use the law in a legal way to place conservation easements on it, and our investors get some tax deductions as well as some return. So that's really what we've been doing to preserve a Little Pine. I do it around the country, and I started, we were going to have a grand opening of the Equestrian Center there back in, 2 years ago, I guess. And so we put on a big event. My family has been in the horse business. I don't know why. I've had saddlebred horses. What's what I started with, and I've been over here as a kid to the saddlebred show that you guys have had, and then my oldest daughter was in saddlebreds, and then my other 2 daughters and the wife, wife and daughter and son were in the hunter jumpers. So I had either the best or worst of each world, depending on how you want to look at it. So as just went along, we had an event over there, and my good friend Vic Russell, my son, used to train with him, and he knows our family well. And we started thinking about a big event, and we thought about it, Calcutta. Now, for those of you that, well, the first thing we thought about, we want to have a big event. We want to pick a charity, a very worthy charity to contribute proceeds to, and that's hard to do these days because it's hard to find something neutral. And so we selected the Manna Food Bank out of Asheville, North Carolina. Feeding hungry people, I think most Indian American would agree that that's a good cause to do. So we set that as a sponsor, and through Vic and mainly his wife Pauline and my family, we put on the first horse show, and we raised about $50,000 that all went to the Manna Food Bank. So, a few events, and it was started originally just as our development, and then unfortunately, between the first event and the second event, Vic's wife, Pauline, of many years, passed away. And my son, on the way to attend the funeral, was in rehab in California at a halfway house, and he came back and, met some so-called friends in Atlanta, and of course, he's now deceased. He succumbed to that. It's a real problem in this country, opioids. It's hit home with me. And so we had to show the second year, little memorial to all of them, and we've each had other friends that have seemed to die in that same time period. And so we formed a foundation for James. And one of the things, a couple core beliefs of the foundation were we've conserved a lot of land around the country, and we know that nature and stuff like that's good for all of us, good for our kids being raised. It's good for therapeutic reasons. And one of our core mission statements is to use our conserved lands to promote those things through charity. And the other thing our family's done is that any money we raise, 100% of that will go to the charity. Our family will fund everything. We're putting up a $50,000 purse, for this event. And the way that works is we want people that are coming primarily from that set of people to give to charity. It's a good, worthy cause. Manna Food Bank is one, and it's a healthy.
Hunger and Health.
Hungry and Healthy. Out of Boone, they will, both will split the proceeds for that. And what kind of happened is You know, the way that works is people come in, there'll be about 20 riders, Vic will explain that to you, and you bet on each rider, basically, each rider, and then the winner will have some prizes that will be good, you know, for the winners, but mainly, you know, we want people to realize that it's going to charity, and I think there's one thing we know, that a lot of wealthy people come to Blowing Rock to the horse show, and we feel like this is going to be an excellent way, you know, to do something good, you know, for the hungry people of Western North Carolina. So what we realized is that we've kind of outgrown Little Pine. We have more lofty goals than just raising a little money for Western North Carolina and a promotion for my development, and we thought it would be a good marriage to come up here. My family's been coming to this show, you know, for a long time, and we feel like that would be a good thing. With that said, I'd like to show, we had a little video, the first event, maybe give you a little flavor of the spirit we want to create for this. We'll show that, and then I think Vic will make a few comments.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher.
Got some music somewhere.
Mr. Van, how are you?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm John Van, and I'm here representing the Blowing Rock Charity Horse Show Foundation. And while we're not sponsoring this one-day event, we are the host. We were approached by Jack and Vic 3 or 4 months ago about the possibility of moving the show to our venue, and it's a really great opportunity for us. As you can tell, these are great people, and they have the same mission we do, which is to raise money for charity. And another mission we have is to promote equine sports. And so with this event, we're doing both those things. And this will be the best equine event, equestrian event that's been held in Blowing Rock. The purse is $50,000. It's one class. And it will be an exciting time. And do you want me to get into how we're going to do the tickets, Maurice? Sure. Yeah, I'll go ahead and talk about that. But we really want the community to get behind this. There are 2 ways to attend the horse show. Or you'll be able to come and buy a, quote, premium ticket. Those are $75, but that includes lunch. It includes box seats, includes a few beverages of your choice. And the big thing is valet parking. So for those of you who've been to the horse show before, you know parking is at a premium there. But if you were willing to buy the $75 ticket, which 100% of that money goes to charity, that'll be split 50-50 with MANA and the Hunger and Health Coalition out of Boone. If you're Yeah, Jack is a very generous guy. I'm a little more conservative than Jack is. So we're trying to keep some of the expenses down, and Jack is like, don't worry about it, I'm paying for it. That's a hard thing for me to understand. But the people can come. We'd love to have as many of you as possible, pay $75, sit in the box seats, have a great lunch, etc. But for people who maybe aren't familiar with what we're doing, and they can come, they can sit in the bleachers for just $10. And again, all the money raised goes to charity. So we're very excited. We couldn't be happier about this. And we think it's going to be a great event, and it's going to be a great event for Blowing Rock also. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Vic Russell and let Vic tell you a little bit about the riders and how that works and the event itself.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, Vic.
Thank you for having us, and this is a great honor for us to be able to come to this great showgrounds, and we're both, Jack and I both are North Carolinians. We're born and raised here. My family came to North Carolina in 1720, and I lived down in Tryon. And I've been putting on horse shows and riding in horse shows and doing this my father did it before me, and I've got 6 children, and 4 of them are professional horsemen, and I have 26 family members that are adult professional horsemen in the Southeast. I said we could fill the stands just for all my cousins to come. But we're honored to have our event on this honorable showgrounds. And what we're doing is now that I've worked in this sport, I've been the coach for several international teams, like I was the coach for the Puerto Rican team, the Venezuelans, Bolivia, a lot of third world countries. They never let me be the coach for America, right? But in my travels, I've traveled to 26 countries. I worked in 20 countries. So I got to know a lot of people around the world. And I call favors when I do this, that not only is Jack giving this, but these people are coming here because they know it's a charity. And they're competing for money, of course, but they're not coming. They can show for money anywhere. And I've got six different countries coming, and those people showing, I started to say men, and I know better, because this is the only sport in Olympic sport that men and women are equal, that they show against each other. Truly, Jack's daughter won this the first year, and truly, she won it. Okay, there was no doubt about it. And the next year, we always say we're diamonds one time and dirt the next, right? But we have really honorable people that come here. They're selected. This is invitational only. And they're selected for their character and for their history of being good people, no matter who's coming. It's a good, clean show, and there's only 1 horse per rider, which really changes the game. When you only have 1 horse to ride in, you can rub off the first jump, and the greatest rider in the world can knock the first jump down. We've had the winningest rider in the Southeast show up last year, had the first jump down, loaded his horse up and went home. So anyone can do it, and any member of this, I'm expecting to have 25 riders. I may take 30 if they enter in time, but 25 is enough. And that way we're not dragging things out. You're not there for 4, 5, 6 hours. You're there for 2.5 hours at the most. You have lunch, you watch a good competition. And the Calcutta is important for us, that people bid on the Calcutta. I don't know if you understand exactly what happens, but we're going to introduce you to the riders and give you a history of what they've done in their life and their career, and not only that, introduce you to their horse. And the horse plays just as much of a part of this as the rider. And then if you like that person, you can go with him, walk the course, get to know him, get to know his horse, and then you can bid as if you're betting on him, but we're not betting. I thought they were calling the cops on me a while ago. We're not betting. But if you win the Calcutta, Jack has a home in Bonaire, okay, that rents for $10,000 a week. You get a week in Bonaire, or you get some of you that like NASCAR Burton Smith and his daughter are involved in this. His daughter will be showing in the class. And they've offered to either 2 tickets to the VIP box with Bruton Smith and his family, or you can have 6 general admission tickets to any race that you want to watch in the NASCAR races at Charlotte. And we have a famous artist, Roger Hoff, who will paint your dog, your horse, or your wife. Whatever you like. But there's other things that we're giving to the Calcutta also, but that's some of the main things that we'll be giving away to the person that wins the Calcutta. And then the money from the Calcutta that they bid goes 100% to charity. And it's tax deductible. So you not only get to go to Bonaire, but you get to take off a full tax deduction for any other amount of money that you spend on the Calcutta. So we're looking forward to this, and I never thought they'd ever let me come here and put on something like this, and I'm hoping that every one of you in this room come and at least watch or come and be a part of it. I think it's going to be, and to all my grandfathers and all my old friends, the Tate families that I grew up watching ride, and that my family's retired some of these trophies here, but we're starting a whole nother beginning of show jumping at Blowing Rock. Thank you for having us. And this is one of the most generous men I've ever known. And I will assure you that everything that we're saying here will be done right to the letter. And I've never been more prouder than to be with this group of people. Thank you.
We're not going to keep any more of your time, but if you have a quick question, I'm sure we can handle it with the 3 guys that are here.
Have any questions?
Will you be riding a jumper?
Yes, sir, I am.
I am not.
I was going.
I'm trying to get it back.
Now, I was ready to bet on that one, okay?
My days of doing that are long gone.
I'm not only going to ride, I plan on winning it.
Well, gentlemen and ladies, thank you so much. And I think I can speak for the council and our citizens that we're looking forward to this, and we will be there to assist in whatever manner we can. Okay? Thank you. All right. Always good things going on in Blowing Rock. Isn't that great? Moving forward, we've got the public hearing for the conditional rezoning R15 to CZ R6M. And Mr. Rothrock.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Only agenda item I have tonight is for a conditional rezoning of property on Valley Boulevard as multiple properties. The applicant is Lisa Harris, Paul Armbruster, who are here tonight, Patsy Ebert, Cherry Point Properties, LLC, Dennis Dagenhart, and Andrew Allison. And they're requesting a rezoning of their 5 properties from R15, single family, to conditional zoning R6M, multifamily with a short-term overlay district. These properties are at 8836, 8850, 8860, 8866, and 8874 Valley Boulevard. And they're requesting this change to allow this change to the base zoning of R6M with an overlay for short-term rental. The applicants are requesting the rezoning to allow short-term rental at their residences, and the conditions of the rezoning would limit the property to single-family use only, which would prohibit duplex or multifamily construction, which would otherwise be allowed in R6M. And any short-term rentals would be compliant with the town land use code and the short-term rental permit application that we prepared about a year ago. On what was not in your staff report, I'm sorry, I cut and pasted some things, and some things were left off. I just give you a little background on some of the meetings that we had. On May 23rd, we had a neighborhood meeting that was held here at Town Hall. There were no neighbors that attended the meeting. There were 3 planning board members that attended, and the applicants at that time discussed what their desires were. We went, and at that time, there were just 3 properties that had signed. There were 4 properties that had signed on, but only 3 were contiguous. The property here, that house has been torn down, this 4th property, and at that time, they had not signed on to the rezoning application. So we went to Planning Board on June 26th, and the Planning Board recommended approval of the conditional rezoning request for those 3 contiguous properties, which at the time was this property here, this one, and this one. Since that Planning Board meeting, the applicant, the property owner here, signed on to the application. We amended it and went back to Planning Board July 18th, and the Planning Board then recommended approval of the revised conditional rezoning application for all 5 properties, and they're shown there in red. The applicant has provided conditions and stipulations for short-term rentals that would be conditions of the rezoning if this is approved. Specific conditions in the ordinance, there's a draft ordinance that's attached for your review. Number 1, limited property uses to single family with short-term rental allowed. They would have the setback standards of R6M applied, which is 25 feet from the street setback and 8 from the sides and rear. All parking spaces must be provided for each bedroom that is to be rented. 911 addresses posted to meet the town code that would be at the property, and also, as our code requires, that 911 address to be posted inside for those renters to know where they are. And any of the construction to build a new house on the Cherry Point LLC property, or any construction would be authorized by a zoning permit, and so would be administrative. The attachments that I included in your packet was the ordinance 2019-07, which is the conditional zoning district ordinance. The zoning map that is part of that ordinance is Exhibit A. The specific conditions in Exhibit B, and I'll go through those. These are mainly applicant proposed conditions. They do restrict their rentals, if this is approved, to a 7-night period instead of just nightly or weekend. They'll have a local contact person that's able to respond to complaints within 2 hours. Some of the standard language that we had in our ordinance when it was adopted last year. Some other things that the applicant proposed. They would rent to, the minimum rental age is 27 years for their tenants. But on page 24 and 25 of the agenda includes all of Exhibit B, which would be the applicant proposed conditions. Within the draft ordinance, I don't know if there's any other additional conditions that would be out of the ordinary. One that as this ordinance was drafted, the short-term rental overlay district has standards in section 9.3 of the land use code, and one of those for an overlay district is that there be a homeowners or property owners association be established if it's a multifamily complex. This ordinance does not require that, but of course, if you would like them to have a homeowners association that would govern those 5 properties, that could be put back in. And a lot of these conditions can be amended as you might see fit. So I'll be glad to answer questions, and I know that the applicant is here to answer questions as well and present what they would like to do. Also in your packet, there was, from Lisa Harris and Mr. Armbruster, there is our commitment to you. Some of their thoughts behind why they brought this proposal forward. Also included was the short-term rental ordinance that we adopted and the overlay ordinance, that section of the code that deals with the short-term rental overlay. I think that's all I have for a staff report. Be glad to answer questions.
Is the 27 years old, can that be enforced?
It would be something, it would be a condition that they've proposed. That's how they want to rent it, and it would apply to all 5 properties.
So could a parent, rent it? Could a parent rent it and put somebody else in there?
I don't know. I'm not sure how they operate, but it'd be a good question for them.
And they're saying a weekly rental, they want.
Weekly rental, minimum.
You said 7 nights or 7 days.
It says 7 nights.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask Alan, you looked over those conditions that Alan was putting. Do you feel anything there that would not be enforceable?
Practically speaking, the one that was just brought up, the 27 years old, might be difficult to enforce, but it's their condition that they've suggested that they're imposing on themselves. So that presumably when they advertise, through their site, they're going to place that as a restriction and a condition because it's in what they have proposed.
Okay, what if the property is sold? Can the new
This is
owners
gonna
be
run with the
held
land.
onto that?
It'll run with the land.
It'll run with the property then, all those conditions. It's a hybrid thing.
They don't have to use their property for short-term rental purposes, but if they do, then these conditions
Right,
will run
they have to
with
use
the land.
those conditions.
Is it too late to sign up to speak?
No, it's not, but if you would, I would like for you to sign up with it, Hillary, if you would, please.
She could just speak during the public hearing
Okay.
section when you open it up. You wouldn't necessarily have to sign up.
If the buyer of the vacant property doesn't like this, he doesn't need to buy it, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And this is basically a hybrid? Would you define it as a hybrid?
I would, and I think that was the terms that they used, and I thought that kind of defines what they're aiming at. Is it conditional zoning? You have some leeway with how you define the ordinance that's adopted. So the short term, I mean, the R6M is the underlying zoning district, but they're putting the condition on their property that it can only be for for single family. Wouldn't be duplexes or anything else. So it is kind of a hybrid.
Well, I mean, are we on solid ground to, let's say, approve a hybrid? We're operating under an ordinance that prohibits this right now, right? They
Yes,
can't
sir.
do it right now.
Can't do it right now, yes, sir.
And don't we have guidelines as to what short-term rentals are?
Yes, sir.
Are they 7 days?
No,
No, they're nightly.
I'm asking
They can't be nightly. But if they, this ordinance, this is a zoning district into itself, and it's a code that applies to these 5 properties. And any conditions that they propose as an applicant are enforceable. So they can't rent it for a night or 2 nights.
Okay.
They can only do what they
What
say.
I'm asking is that legal for us to do that?
Yes.
Okay. It is? Okay.
I do have a question. does that also mean that 5 homeowners down on Ransom Street can decide to do the same? And come to
No.
us?
On Ransom Street,
But we said no.
that was one property.
Right.
If it's unique enough, it's already it's zoned multifamily, but I think there would have to be some special conditions and applications to that ordinance, to a draft ordinance. This wouldn't even come before you if it was across the street. If we go back to the one that shows the zoning map. If it was across the street, we would not be considering this
Because?
ordinance. Because that's a neighborhood across the street.
We'll say that 25 of those people wanted it. Could they petition us?
To change the zoning.
No, I don't think so. I don't think that's unique. I think this is unique because you're separated by a US highway. You're adjacent to other R6 zoning with a restaurant, and across the street, a country club and fitness center. So
Is the restaurant zoned what?
R6M,
It's what?
it's zoned R6M.
R6
The
M?
restaurant's right here. This is multifamily, this is the Pinnacle Woods, these are the Fairway Villas, and this is the country club.
So how does R6M qualify for a restaurant?
It doesn't, but it's a non-conforming use, and the use was there long before zoning was, so that was the most realistic zoning.
Okay, that's my point.
Yeah.
Because if that particular piece of property were sold, and it wasn't gonna be a restaurant, it was gonna be a dress shop.
No,
Now, wait a minute, hold on.
oh, okay.
And they wanted to do that, and they would come and say, hey, I'd like to have you rezone this to commercial, so I can have a dress shop. Could they do that? You don't
I don't think they could rezone it to commercial.
They couldn't ask us to rezone it for
They
commercial?
could ask. I don't think you're obligated to rezone it.
Isn't short-term
Well,
rental
when you go down
commercial?
there, Bill Furr's, his is R15 down there too. All the rest of that's R15.
This one,
No, right next to him,
this one.
going left. Is that, tell me what that is.
That's vacant. That's vacant land. There's a house
That's all
on this
vacant
one.
land?
These two are vacant.
And it's zoned R6M?
R6M. Chateau Cloud is right
Oh,
here.
So that's
Chateau
all
Cloud's right there.
R6M?
There's a house here.
Those
There's
two
a house
are
here.
R15s?
This is owned by DOT.
Yeah, but the old Fur house, those two other ones are R15.
R15, yes, sir.
What about below the ones that are asking for the change? What is that?
This is Globe Land Company, and this
So we can get
This
down
is
there
too.
if you wanted to.
It's what?
I mean, it's Globe Land Company, and I think these two properties are tied together.
So it's R15 too?
It's R15 and it's like this. The access to these properties is right here. That's the widest point on this property is 40 feet wide, and that's to get to this property below.
Yeah, there used to be an old sawmill down there, Cherry Tree Hollow.
If we were to approve something like this, and somebody comes from another area in the town and said, we've got this block here, or 2 blocks, and we'd like to have it rezoned, so we can have short-term rentals. Or that's what we'd like to do. And they say, here is our list of things that we would do for you, much of the same as this one here, except we're gonna make the guy have to be 30 years old and maybe so now we want another hybrid. So now we have something else that we have to manage too. I guess my question is this. If this were approved, and they have something that they want for that particular piece of property, why aren't the rules put in the deeds? Because in that case, we don't have to manage, we don't have to worry about it. Our town still has the rules that we've got right now. And I'm afraid, well, not afraid, I just don't know what it's gonna be. But if the state, whatever they decide to do with this subject of short-term rentals, we are on record right now, that's, if we have a piece of paper that said, here are our rules, and they've been in place for X amount of years. And they say, well, wait a minute. Just in August of this year, you changed it, at least for some of it, it's different. So which is it, guys? Is it this one that you're going to, or this? My question is, do we want, or do you, in order to manage this, Mr. Town Manager, do you want to have something like this? Or should those specific rules that they want be in the deeds on all 5 properties? What do you think?
So if you're worried about whether this is gonna run with the title, this is gonna be recorded in the Register of Deeds office.
Yeah,
And so it'll be anyone who's searching the title for any of these pieces of property that are gonna be in this overlay district, they will see this, and they will see that it attaches to and runs with the title to their property.
oh, okay.
Just like now, it's R15,
Okay.
it's zoned R15, it's presented that way. When they bought their property, they knew that this was not allowed. All these property owners knew that these were single-family residents. So you're giving these property owners something special if you give them short-term rentals. You're in effect giving
We're
them
giving, well, yeah,
the
obviously,
ability
we're giving them something,
to,
we're giving them something that, well, we would be giving them something that they didn't have when they bought the property,
absolutely. They knew when they bought the property
that it was R15.
that it was R15, it's zoned R15. Kevin's got a map. If they weren't sure, they can look it up with the GIS. There it is, R15. They can pull it up in the ordinance, R15. It should say on the MLS, R15. It's zoned R15. And then if we pass this, it'll have a special overlay. Like if we passed a historic district, it would have a special overlay on top of it.
Well, it's contiguous to the other stuff. That's R6M. It's got the highway on one side of it and a gorge on the other. I guess it's all of them want it.
Once again, for the record, Kevin, could you state what makes this property unique?
I think it's unique because it's bordered by a U.S. highway, 4-lane highway. The rear of it is bordered by about 300 acres of vacant land that, I'm not going to say undevelopable, but very difficult to develop. It is adjacent, or one narrow access point from existing R6M property with a restaurant, almost across the street from other R6M where the country club is, and some other multifamily uses within that corridor. On the west side is bordered by a piece of property that DOT owns because of the highway and the wall that was needed to be constructed for the highway construction. So some of those things are why it is a little bit unique from other properties in that area.
Can you remind us, Kevin, when any property that has come before We, in redeveloping and looking again at, this council has looked again at short-term rentals, has looked again at what makes them safe and how we want that ordinance to look. We locked it down, we voted in. We had 23 properties. How many properties came before us that said, hey, we want to be short-term rental? We want to, contest this or come to planning,
We sent out violation letters to
Violation
20
letters.
to 25.
and you had, how many people come in and that wanted to be short-term rentals or were doing it in violation?
Appealed
Yes,
the
that
decision.
appealed.
6.
6 of those. And those neighbors came in, and how many of them supported those 6 violators? How many of them said, sure, y'all should, why don't you continue violating this law, and why don't y'all become short-term rentals? How many of those neighbors were for that?
I'm trying to remember all 6 cases, but some were in neighborhoods. There was staunch opposition to some of those that were in neighborhoods, Echo Park, Green Hill, Woods,
Mockingbird,
Mockingbird.
they were all against it.
Now, Lisa and Paul were one of them. There wasn't much opposition to theirs, but they were in violation and went to the Board of Adjustment, and they lost their case. So this was the next step that they proposed, and I said, and we worked through it, and I said, this is probably the only way that you have a chance to be able to do what you're wanting to do,
What was that?
is this rezoning application.
So you advised them to go to the 7 days? Is
No,
that what you're saying?
no,
I didn't think so.
no. They brought this forward, and I said, this is probably the only thing that would work,
Okay.
a rezoning. They proposed all the conditions.
So, but the difference between this and the Ransom Street
Right.
is US 321 in your words, and land that holds the world together. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
And the other adjacent R6 zoning.
Did the applicant talk, or did you talk to those other 2 properties down there that have houses on them?
No. Because they weren't contiguous. No. They wanted to do it by themselves. I said, no. And then they
Well, I'm
had,
just
they
wondering-
were trying to get those
I'm
5,
just
but
wondering if they were, if they were interested in it, that's all.
I don't know, but because of this separation,
Well,
we
isn't
didn't consider it.
that a drop-off straight down?
No, that's the
Yeah.
deal, well.
It is. I mean, there's a
DOT.
retaining wall. Yes, sir.
I mean, you can't build anything on that thing, can you?
Be tough.
Pretty tough, wouldn't it?
Would.
Yeah, that's kind of say.
But we did not, those properties were not considered.
Shall we,
Uh,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, what were you saying?
I was just going to see if we were ready for the public to speak. Go ahead.
Now, let's hear from
All right, I think I think the applicants, would you like to speak on this issue? And if you would, just state your name and your address. Okay.
I'm Lisa Harris, and our address is 8866 Valley Boulevard.
Can you speak up a little bit?
And I'm Paul Armbruster. And,
This is your second home address?
Yes.
Where's your, home, where are you from?
We're from the Hickory area.
and, we started this process and we've been involved with some of the other people that, wanted to rent their homes as well. And ours is a little different because of the way we do it. This is a very high-end home. It's priced to where you're not going to have a 27-year-old or a college kid probably going to be able to afford that. And we're very strict on everything how this is run. We have a 5-star rating in the VRBO, and we also are developing our own website now. But the way that Lisa does things and the way that we've worked with all 5 neighbors, I email all neighbors on everything we're doing all the time. Even when we were building the house, when we first bought it, I did things like, we need to take this tree out, and it's on our property, it's on your property, it's on my property. We need to take it out because it's dying. We took that out. I paid for that.
Yeah.
We've just tried to be the best neighbors possible, and it's not a $75 a night place. It's
That's right.
It's way up there. As a matter of fact, we do have long-term, month right now. We have a month rental there now, and we had a 2-month, or we're getting ready to have a
Yeah.
2-month. And so it does rent monthly.
So we have been doing the 28-day is allowed. And we've been doing very well with it, and people really like us and have enjoyed being there. And we want to stress the fact that we maintain our property value, and believe that being said, that we want to be good stewards of the village and do the right thing for people, and have an opportunity for people to enjoy our little village and have a good place to stay, and not really take away from anybody else. All we're trying to do is allow for, someone to come in and have a really nice, luxurious place to enjoy the village. And around from us, with the country club being there and all the activities there, we feel like we fit in, and we're
And the
trying to.
horse show too, we get a lot of
Yeah.
horse show
Yeah, we do. We
people
get people
that
like
rent.
that too, so.
So,
We want to maintain our peace for our neighbors, and that's why we were saying that we would like to do 7-night, because we don't want a lot of people coming in and out, and we just want to do the right thing for our people, so that's all I
Yep.
can say. Okay.
that's about it.
All right.
Let me ask you a question. Do you have you thought about, you gonna have a homeowners association?
I would be open to that. I have no
I
problem.
mean, have you
with that.
talked about it?
We have not talked about it, no.
I don't think anybody would be against that. We all know each other. There wouldn't be any fees. There's nothing that we need to pay for between all the homes. There's
No,
no,
I was thinking of consistency. You mentioned that you take care of your place,
Absolutely.
okay?
yeah.
Yes, sir.
Well, do the other people do the same?
Well, I believe they do,
Yeah.
and they're
I mean,
very
you're the
proud
one
of their,
that live next door to, do you think everybody does?
Yeah,
I do.
yeah. I know that Pat Ebert has a caretaker that he's there every day. He's just, I thought he might even live there because his truck's there all the time, but he's always
He's
doing
always
the
taking care of
mowing and the bushes and the,
I just wondered if you talked about that.
Yeah.
That's all.
okay.
Any other questions, guys? All right.
Thank you.
very much. All right, let's see, I think the next was, would you like to speak?
Yes.
Okay. You would just step up and state your full name and your address.
Thank you. My name is Neil Orgain, and my address is 181 The Pines. And my home is across the street from these 5 properties, and 321 is the corner of Norwood Circle and 321. And my husband and I are very much opposed to the rezoning of these properties. When John and I bought our home 10 years ago, we were charmed with the Blowing Rock community. Our stretch of 321 is the gateway to Blowing Rock. And when you have rental homes, you don't know who's going to rent it. Y'all stated earlier that if you have 4 bedrooms, then they can have up to 4 cars. Well, if you rent all 5 homes and you have 4 bedrooms, 5 bedrooms, you're going to have 20 cars there potentially. Holy cow, that area is not made to have 20 cars in it. And then you're going to have people in and out, people coming in at all times of the day. Short-term rental is not like a 28-day rental. 28-day people, they're there they're there for the, long-term, they're treating it as a home. Short-term rentals is single family, but gosh, my sister can come with her 4 kids, my husband, my in-laws, my best friend, and all of a sudden, we've got 20 people there because it can sleep 14 and we can put people on the floor. So it's just, you never know what short-term rental is going to bring. And when people bought these homes, and the people that have had these homes for a long time, we knew that that you couldn't have short-term rental. And so now you've got a couple of people, new people on the little corridor where you all are, and they've said, we want to rent our home for 7 nights. Well, and they've been renting it beforehand. I understand some of the people were fined for renting it because they were not, I don't know if they were aware of the rental, that you couldn't rent for less than 28 days. So I know that some of the people have been fined because they didn't know the rules. And it's very concerning to me that my property values can go down when you have short-term rentals. They don't go up. And we continue to do a lot of work to our home, and we don't want our property values going down in any form or fashion. Again, you don't know how many people are going to be coming in and out. During the days, you've got more traffic, you've got the trash, we've got trash pickup one day, we've got recyclables every other week, and we already have notices that we're not allowed to put our trash out other than the day before, and they need to go in the same day. And so again, we don't know what the short-term rental is. The town of Blowing Rock has made a decision to keep it at 28 days, and we don't know what the state bid is going to do, the VRBOs, but I can tell you, I want our village to stay the way it is. Long-term rentals, 28 days, no short-term rentals. There we are. Thank you.
Mrs. Lassiter.
I think Mr. Steele made this, I'm Linda Lassiter, 559 Morningside Drive, thank you very much. I think Mr. Steele made some excellent observations there. And while Mr. Rothrock was talking, I prepared something I'll call Exhibit A, which I would like to pass down, which shows a fresh can of worms, which I believe is going to be opened if this is allowed. There may be any number of enclaves in Blowing Rock, groups of 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 homeowners who would love to have short-term rentals, who may be coming before you one after the other saying, I want 5 days, I'll rent to people that are 21 and up, or any number of conditions that they could put on and inundate you with proposals if this one is allowed, and I don't think it should be.
Thank you, Mrs. Lassiter. Do we have anybody else in the audience that would like to speak for or against? Yes, if you would. Whichever's easier.
Does she have to sign in?
No, you don't. That'd be fine. You would state your name and address.
I'm Karen Herderick, and I live at 1930 Main Street, just not too far from these properties. Over the years, in 1986, I rented one of these homes that are closer over, next to, actually next to Shadow Cloud. These properties, and I'd like to speak in favor of them, particularly this group of 5 here. And you can say, well, they knew when they bought these properties where they were. I've known Mrs. Ebert for years, and they've had that home for years and years and years. And even though we've been talking about 321 for years and years and years, until it's right out in front of you, and cars are going 60 miles an hour, even though they're not supposed to, by that, those properties and the values that that they have today with that highway, 4-lane, people coming at 40, 50, even 60 miles an hour, that's a different set of rules. I don't think you would find any place comparable on Green Hill or Ransom or anywhere else that would compare to those 5 pieces of property. Next to commercial, most of you, whether you were at Canyons or Ridgeline now, I mean, I wouldn't want to live next to a bar that's open till 2 or 3 in the morning. I think at some point we can all make an argument for things in the way we want to vote, and we can make an argument against things in the way we want to vote. I have nothing, I don't know any of these people other than Mrs. Ebert, who has held on to that property. I don't think she uses it much anymore. But I don't think this is going to start a whole big revolution in short-term rentals here. I mean, how much pushback have we had in central downtown business against short-term rentals? When I first came up here, I rented before I decided to buy, and I think a lot of other people do too. And if you're a family, you don't want to stay in a motel. You might not want to stay up on Apski Mountain. You might not want to stay up on Beach. You want to be maybe in Blowing Rock. And this is as this lady pointed out, I mean, the average college kid does not want to rent in Blowing Rock, I hate to tell you. I live in Charleston in the wintertime. You haven't lived till you've been in short-term rental in Charleston, and the hundreds of bachelorette parties and bachelor parties and wedding parties and whatever. So I've been able to see both sides of this and what Charleston has done and addressed and how they've addressed a lot of this situation. But I think for Blowing Rock, especially these properties and the values of these properties, it affords many families, and people today don't take a month vacation like they used to. Families don't, you know, and a lot of people don't have a block of a month. So a week, for many people, this is all they can afford to take or are able to take maybe as a mountain vacation. And I just think these 5, where they are, is not going to start a short-term revolution. So, and the other thing, and with Virginia, with all due respect to you, but I don't know what recusing and what conflict of interest is in terms of voting on this, but you do own short-term rental, and I don't know about anyone else here. I don't know if you can look at it objectively.
Well, the only.
And I know you're in central downtown.
The only way a conflict of interest has occurred is if someone is either Virginia or her husband are receiving direct compensation. That's the law.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
I'd like to see.
Need to sign in?
No.
I'm good.
Yeah, just state your name and address.
Tyler Bryson, 152 Hilltop Way. I'd like to say that regarding these people buying this property, knowing that it was zoned R15, I would like to ask Kevin, the church right next to Skyland Drive, the white church, that was zoned R15 when they bought it. What is it zoned right now?
Conditional zoning. Next to Carter. Conditional rezoning, so it's general business, but restricted to office use.
Okay. And my understanding, being from the neighborhood, it is adjacent to a neighborhood. You have properties in and around it that are all single family. Although you go down 321, then you get towards the subway and the commercial district over there. But it is adjoins the Norwood Circle, the Trillium Lane, which is all residential. These 5 properties, as has been stated, I understand, you know, neighbors come out and they're concerned about noise. They're concerned about property values. You have a cliff off the back. You have a highway that's just been widened in the front. they've stated to restrict it themselves down to 1 week. So as not to hurt, they didn't mention this, but not to hurt the hotel business. Someone wanting to rent for a week is a different clientele than wants to rent a hotel. They need bedrooms, they need a kitchen, they need a working kitchen. I just don't see how allowing their self-imposed restriction of 1 week is going to hurt anything. They don't want their property damaged. If you look at short-term vacation renters, most people self-regulate. They put in, hey, we want to have a minimum of a certain age. They have their own rules. They don't want the property values to go down. So for these 5 in particular, I'm a yes. I'm in favor. I don't think it hurts the values. I don't think it hurts the values of the neighborhood. I don't think it hurts the values of the town. In fact, someone coming to buy it down the road is going to say, wow, hey, I'm a real estate professional. I've been in 20 years. You got people that come, they want to buy a house, and they like, hey, I can get a little rental income. This will help pay the mortgage a little bit. So especially these 5 on 321 with a cliff behind, whatever it's called, former Canyons restaurant on the side, nothing on the other side. What's it going to hurt? I don't see an issue with it. I'm in favor. Thank you.
I'm looking at VRBO right now, and is your address 8860?
No, 8866.
8866. So is the owners of one of the owners of 8860 here? That's one of these properties, right? So they've got it rented for a weekend, and over here's 6 nights. This one's a weekend. They're in violation right now.
As long as they only do it once every 28 days.
This is,
Well,
but that's not this meeting. It's very unfortunate that this happened tonight because I just came back from Yellowstone. And we drove into the park through Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And we were in the park for 3 days. And we drove out of the park into West Yellowstone, Montana. And you guys can Google it. These are very different experiences. And I have a feeling, like Blowing Rock, it's due to planning. We are keeping our small town village feel because we have zoning and planning rules. We do have new short-term rental properties, and mine is one of them. We bought, Karen, we did, and I'll disclose this to everybody. We bought a property that short-term rentals are allowed, nightly rentals, and we paid dearly for it. And we also renovated that property. But that is not, it's allowed there. We'll never have to come before this council because we knew that buying it. It's a commercial property. There are other properties that have been renovated and became short-term rentals recently where it's allowed. Karen Diamond has beautifully developed several short-term rental properties. A couple on Morris Street, a couple on Sunset. There's some more properties above Tweeds, or what is there's a clothing store where there's a couple of 2-bedroom apartments and 1-bedroom apartment where short-term rental is already allowed, and it's been redeveloped. So we have new inventory, that short-term rental, where it's already allowed, and it's been redeveloped. So we are not hurting for short-term rental properties in the town of Blowing Rock, in my opinion. We also have short-term rental properties, and they are the Meadowbrook Inn, the Holiday Inn, the Boxwood Inn, the Blowing Rock. We have lots of hotels that are short-term rentals, Mountain Air Inn, and as I understand it, these hotels have 30% occupancy rate. 30%. So they've got to get all their business done between May, June, and July, mainly July. So we're not hurting for inventory. We've had it redeveloped, short-term rentals. We have hotels, nightly rentals. You guys just said that you have no problem renting your place for 28 days or more. So, in my opinion, this is not needed. We can look like Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and have second homes and seasonal homes as the gateway to our community, and maintain a mountain village as you go into the Blue Ridge Parkway, or we can open up West Yellowstone and allow these properties to be used another way. I don't think it's fair to any other property in town to take away from our people that are allowed to have short-term rentals where it's already allowed, and give that sack of money to these people where it's not allowed. I just think it's very unfair.
Well, do we have a motion?
Wait, we need to close the public hearing.
I've got a question of Kevin first, Doug. Yeah. Kevin, I just want to get straight. I'm a little confused. Did the planning board hear the 7-day issue?
Yes, sir.
They did?
Yes.
Okay,
They were presented with the information that's in your packet.
okay.
Do we have others that would like to speak for or against before we close the public hearing?
I'd just like to ask a question. I'm not familiar with VRBO. When you looked and you said that such and such address is currently in violation, could it be they blocked it off, that they want to use it for that time, so that someone wouldn't rent it? I mean, are you sure they're in violation?
Well, that's kind of a moot
Yeah,
point right now.
it's outside of it. I probably shouldn't have brought it up,
That's,
because it's not
that-
what we're.
yeah. Thank you, Tyler, but at this point, it's kind of a moot point. Do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
I want to drill down on how many short-term rental units are in this town. They're between 130 and 140. Correct. As an actual figure.
Correct. We had a study that did that about, I'm gonna say, 5 or 6 years ago. And I'll tell you who came up with that. It was John Aldridge. He has that. He went and counted all the rooms that we had. And being on the TDA, I gotta tell you, the last 4 or 5 months, our occupancy has really been very high. And I don't see anything based upon the month of August so far. It's gonna be another good one in August, and probably September and October. I think the people that have short-term rentals are doing, they're doing okay. They might be doing okay.
And we're kind of discussing amongst ourselves. I'd rather go ahead and close
Yeah.
the make a motion to close the public hearing.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, moving forward, do we have a motion to approve or disapprove on the rezoning?
Can we talk amongst ourselves first?
After a motion.
motion to deny the request for short-term rental on the 5 parcels.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Further discussion?
Yeah, a lot of things have changed in 10 years. That road used to be 2 lanes. And so when those people bought those houses, it wasn't even an issue of whether or not they were gonna rent. And in the last 4 or 5 years, this is what we gave them. 4-lane highway. And so I concur that that area has changed. And these people that own that property would like to have more flexibility to do with that property what they wish. But they also do not want to hurt anybody. And for the life of me, so far, I haven't heard anybody say or demonstrate how them having that flexibility is going to hurt anybody. The value of anybody's property or next door neighbors or anything. So I haven't heard anything really negative. I tell you, the positives I hear is that if those, and even be mercenary, but it's the source that I didn't know. That's a plus. I'm struggling with this whole, and if we, I don't know, we would be doing, said, well, we're gonna set a precedent. Well, I'm not sure. Because where else on 321, a 4-lane highway, where we have R15?
And down here.
Want to.
Well, they could come together.
Well, they
and
could.
And you're
They
setting the
could.
precedents again, and I think,
But
you
that
know,
doesn't
they
mean you
lost.
have to. doesn't-
No, but they lost land just like the people across the street.
I agree.
But look at, you've got R15 down, he hasn't shown the, we can't move it. But there's R15 down across from Greenbrook,
Oh, yeah, those are those.
and behind it, so all those people can come.
Those are all brown.
I mean, I think, you talk about setting a precedence, I think you're opening up a can of worms that's gonna change neighborhoods in this town forever.
I don't see how you can say that.
Well, I'm just stating
How
my
can you say it's
opinion.
gonna change the neighborhood?
Because I think people are gonna wanna do it, and they're gonna wanna do it.
How do you know that?
And I'm just, but I'm telling, and I mean,
Well,
you
I
know,
don't
we have,
agree with it. But our planning director, see any place,
well,
Is that what you said, Kevin? I didn't think so.
On 321 like this,
No.
you see a place like this, any place in our town?
I really can't answer. I can't
That's a tough.
try the whole town. It's clearly a neighborhood.
Highways, and
This is not a neighborhood isolated by the highway and zoning. If it was across the street, it would not be before you. And y'all, doesn't matter to me which way you go at all. They had just presented something, and I said, this is probably the only way that you have a chance to do that. It is unique, and I think the planning board said that as well. But certainly that decision's up to you guys.
submit that, as I look at, we have to look at, people that, the people for 3, 4, 5, people that come up, or daily basis would be the people that own businesses in this town. Those are our 4 major stakeholders.